Picture this. I'm racing down a hill in a fiery red wagon, my favorite thick black winter coat flapping against the glossy paint, squeals of joy emanating from my 5-year-old self. And suddenly, my coat gets snagged in one of the wheels of the wagon. Passionately, I tug on the coat, trying to pry it free from the wheel, but awkwardly, my hand reached the wheel's circling nightmare, and crack! My weekly wagon adventure turns from joy to horror, a horror that results in a splint around my pointer finger for a week. This is one of my many adventures growing up in London. Of all the memories, this one stands out because it symbolizes the journey of new adventures, including the challenges and triumphs of moving to a new continent. As some of you may know, I lived half of my life in the enchanting city of London. Because of circumstances beyond my control, I moved to this land of freedom. Once I settled down, this is where my new life began as an American. While the exciting reality of having lived on 2 continents, each for 7 years, helped shape the person I am today, I have also worked very hard to become the person I want to be. I consider London to be a very different culture than that of the United States, even though America has historical ties with England. Most notably, the food stood out to me as different. In England, my food included slices of baguettes hidden in the dishes of my meals, bolognese heaped down right in front of me. Porridge was the most common thing I ate for breakfast, and I could never forget the sweet scent of pudding that always made me smile. Even so, I never really liked escargot. I never really developed a taste for them. Besides, they're snails. Another thing I had to adjust to was the different dialect, even though both countries spoke English. Living in London allowed me to develop a distinct British dialect. Let me give you a few examples. I would delicately place my crisps into the bin, and after that, I would take a trip to the loo. If my laces on my running shoes were a tad bit loose, I would get really cross. If I lost my scrumptious biscuit, I would have a gander or find out my mum ate it. When I went to school, I hung out with my mates, and I always carried a book bag. Prior to moving across the pond, I had completed the 3rd year in my British school. I went to a religious school, Pembridge Hall, and had to go to church quite often. During church, I distinctly remember the tradition of the golden apple. It was not an actual apple, it was just a pin, but it meant the world to the students. One person from each grade would receive a golden apple pin on their gray school coats to represent a positive quality they displayed, such as leadership, kindness, honesty, and being scholarly in general. On one of these days, I remember hearing the children's joyful singing come to an end as the announcements for the recipients of the golden apple finally began. Everyone's excitement was buried inside of them. I believed that I was not going to receive one, so I sat there, looking admiringly at my classmate who I felt deserved it the most. As I anticipated her name being called, I heard someone else's name. It was not hers, it was mine. Nervously marching up to the person holding this glowing apple, she placed into my hands, and I held the desirable award. I unexpectedly won this amazing prize that I still cherish today. Since I got this golden apple, I realized that if I put more effort in the way I think and communicate with others, I will succeed at being a leader, the main reason for this award. I won it because I helped my classmates at times they needed someone the most. Soon after, I would bring this golden pin to the West, a place of new opportunity. On December 11, 2011, my time in London came to an end. Before the day came, I was sitting with my best friend, Mariana, on the steps of my London apartment. She was my dearest friend and partner in crime of all the times we got in trouble in class. So she could remember me, I gave her a Christmas card I made by myself with letter stamps and cheap glitter. I listened to the clack of her loafers fading down the stairs and cherishing the remains of our friendship. I did not want my friendships in London to end. I remember that night that I fell asleep on the playroom couch, crying, promising myself that I would never forget the memories that remained bright in my mind like the lights on the London Eye. The chapter of my life in London came to an end once I got onto the airplane that carried me far away to an amazing adventure I was awaiting. From the friends I made, the food I ate, the British dog I raised, and the blue door I walked out of every morning to ride my pink scooter in a race with my siblings, I knew I could never have this life again. But now, I would have a new beginning. Once my new adventure in Connecticut began, the first stop after my home was the gas station. When we were there, I bought chips, not crisps, candy, not pudding. I also need to go to the bathroom instead of the loo. I threw my candy wrappers into the garbage, not the bin. The changes of the words all seemed to hit me on my very first day. I realized that I had to learn a whole new culture. In America, I had to dash onto a yellow school bus instead of riding a pink scooter down sidewalks. My backpack was a friend that accompanied me on the way to school, not my book bag. And school was different too. We learned about George Washing Machine, a president. What about Queen Elizabeth? Since London has a monarchy, I had no idea what a president was. Mountains of homework invited me into the history of America, and this is when I got confused. As a result of not being able to understand, school was a hard transition for me. I felt like no one was supporting me or lifting me up. I was once again put into a different group of kids who were all younger than me by a year. But I adapted to these people. Deep in my heart, I knew I could succeed once again because the golden apple showed me that I could have the strength. During that time, I made my first true friend. One day, a boy came up to me and said I should meet someone who has a cot for a dad. He brought me to a girl wearing pigtails, digging beside a rock. At the time, we were strangers, but suddenly became friends, and after, best friends. When I met her, I still had my accent filled with the vocabulary I grew up with. However, that started to change when she kept correcting me. From then on, I lost the last British element that was with me for my whole life. But little did I know, my British roots would take me more than one person to take them down. Even though my experiences growing up in America have been challenging and are still challenging, I know the lessons I learned will help me grow up into a stronger person. For all the negative experiences, I can't hold grudges against them, and instead embrace them as battle scars because they made me stronger. I'm glad to be in a country that has the freedom that others do not. I know in my individual journey I will find my way. Even if I lived on 2 continents for 7 years each, it still doesn't change the person I have become. I struggled over the years to understand if I was American or European. As a result of experiencing 2 different cultures, I struggled to define myself as either. But who doesn't struggle with their identity at this age? I'm the creative, strong, brave meme lord I made myself to be. I made my decisions to make the person I am today. Not because I'm from America or Europe, but because I'm Carsen. Don't be defined by your genetics or even nationality. You build yourself up with the actions that you take and the experiences you go through. Don't let yourself be defined by the place you come from. Shape yourself and shape your surroundings. Thank you for all the people who have been in both worlds. These memories I shared with the people are just the beginning, not the end of my journey. Thank you.